Gavin Newsom, governor of California, has signed into law a bill that would make California a sanctuary for trans kids and families.
This is something that we talked about earlier in the year. There were messages coming out very early that Senator Scott Wiener was proposing a sanctuary bill that would be able to allow for families that were fleeing states that are prosecuting gender-affirming care to find sanctuary in California. Now, the governor has signed that, and this is going to allow for a lot of protections that are going to keep other states such as Texas or Alabama or Florida or Oklahoma or Tennessee or any of these other that want to make gender affirming care a criminal act. This is going to give those people an opportunity to say, we can go there and we can possibly avoid prosecution. We can avoid extradition back to the state, because California said that they would protect anyone in California, that police officers and law enforcement from the state of California cannot be used to apprehend or take into custody anybody in a sanctuary situation. So California is standing out and saying, no, we believe these families are allowed to live their lives the way they want to and to provide the care for their minor children who want that gender affirming care for themselves.
I love that. That's so perfect. That is exactly what we need. I'm glad that that is the case, that is now enacted. I know we had talked about the federal government protecting sanctuary states in these cases, and upholding that kind of legislation. So, but I'm really, really happy about that.
But also keep in mind that these are the type of actions on the part of a state that led us to the division between the North and the South.
Mm-hmm.
Because the northern states allowed for freed slaves to live. But if someone had a present claim, they could send bounty hunters up into northern states and seize slaves that they claimed were escaped. And without adequate evidence, those cases were usually very violent in resolution. And so you got into this supposed states' rights issues. And this is what happens when you throw the things back to the states. When it comes to interstate commerce, when it comes to interstate actions, you run into places where the federal government must step in and provide some form of clarity, because states cannot decide this when they have equal rights against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem that is going to brew and it's going to build unless the government steps in and says, we have to provide some clarity on this.
Yes. Yeah, some clarity of the rights of folks based on gender identity. Yeah, we need to solidify it at the federal level.
But also remember that we are in a conservative Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough to hope for affirmative federal action right now. This is why it is important, everyone, to get out and vote in November. You have, I think, until, I don't know how it is in all states, but I know that by next week, I have to have my voter registration updated with my legal name that is on my legal identification. You have to have that if you want to be able to vote. If you are in an ID voting state, make sure that your voter registration is compatible. It lines up with your legal documentation. If it doesn't, they can keep you from voting. So please go and do that. Go out and make sure that you are legal to vote, that you have your right to vote, and go vote. This year is critical for us. Things are not looking good. Things are looking very, very tenuous as far as rights being allowed. In fact, the fall term of the Supreme Court just began. One of the cases that they are going to be arguing happens to deal with LGBTQ+ rights.